Good afternoon, and welcome to the 6th Annual Academic Symposium Awards Ceremony. First, I would like to send Dr. McGee's regrets. He had other presidential duties today, and he loves this event so much, and he was very disappointed, but has the ability to watch it online, which is awesome. This week's presentations actually made me so proud to be a Quincy University graduate. The work that all of you students put into this, the work that your mentors put into it, it's so inspiring. So student presenters and mentors, would you please stand so that we can recognize you, and with a round of applause. Dr. Deskins, thank you for your support of the Quest Center and the vision in making this possible and successful. Sarah Phillips, thank you also for all of the assistance that you provided for today. Chartwells and Joe Borderwick, thank you for the excellent meals and snacks. I think everyone will agree this is so awesome to be post-COVID and not have boxed lunches. So that was a great addition this year. Dan Kemner, thank you for setting up and ensuring that we have everything, even when we make mistakes and forget things. Thank you so much. Community relations, thank you for your skills and all of the time spent promoting, videotaping, and providing website support. To all of our judges, thank you. We know that it takes time out of your classroom and your schedules, and some of you are leaving work to do this, and we're very grateful for your expertise. Thank you also to the students that came out to support their peers. That really inspires your peers, that enthusiasm that you bring, the great questions that you asked the last few days during the actual presentations. It was exciting to watch sitting and being a part of that. So if I overlooked a name, I am so sorry, but thank you for your help in this. At this time, I am so excited to invite our first keynote speaker to the stage, Bridget Brengle. She's got a piece of my heart. She was a worker for us for 4 years and in the Quest Center, and many of you have worked with her as well. But Bridget is no stranger to the Quincy University Academic Symposium, as she presented her junior and senior years. She is a School of Science and Technology graduate with a biological sciences degree. She has her master's degree from Washington University and is currently a senior associate scientist at Pfizer. Her talk today, from Sonic Hedgehog to pharmaceutics and everything in between. Welcome, Bridget.
Thank you, Kristen, for that wonderful introduction. It's been so great to be here and to see the wonderful research that y'all have performed over the last year. It's been great to be back at QU and to see so many friendly faces of whom I think so highly of. And Dr. Anger is here as well. As Kristen said, I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about both my participation in 2 academic symposiums as well as my time at QU, and how I believe that all of those experiences have really shaped my career post-graduation from QU. So to give you just a little bit of orientation about where I was in space and time, I was at QU from 2015 until 2019. As Kristen said, I graduated with a biology degree. The very next day after graduation, the Monday after graduation, I started as a research technician in a lab in Washington University in St. Louis. I was there for a little over a year and a half until I started in graduate school, staying at WashU in St. Louis. And today I'm going to talk just very briefly about both the application and interview process, but also my time in school. And then where I am now, as Kristen mentioned, I'm at Pfizer. I started just over 6 months ago now, and so I'll walk you through each of these stages. I'm not going to have the time today to talk in specifics about any of my science or really any great detail of anything, but I'm more than happy to talk with you later on. Kristen has all my contact information. I'd love to chat more. So when I first started at QU, I was an admissions ambassador. So that was my first job on campus, and that was really my first opportunity to start to hone and develop my communication skills. When you're giving tours to various high school students, prospective students, you have to learn how to present information in different formats. You have to give it to the students, the parents, the siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, whomever it may be. It's the same information. And I'll tell you that that skill is something so fundamental to presentations and became instrumental later on. As Kristen said, I was also a front desk attendant in the Student Success Center. At the time I was there, it was only a student position, which later on morphed into an assistant to career services, which is now the Quest Center. And so I had to throw a picture of Kristen and I up here. This is from my junior year awards ceremony. So as she said, we worked pretty closely together, and it was here where I really developed a passion for career development, not only my own and finding what brought me joy, what brought me happiness, where I wanted to be in my life, but also helping others to achieve those goals and achieve those experiences. I was also a member of the chemistry club and the pre-professional sciences club. I think those are still around. And I loved those opportunities specifically because of the outreach that we did. We did events where students would come, high school, elementary, middle school students would come from the area, and we could perform science experiments for them. We could have them do little activities, and that always brought me so much joy, as scientific outreach still does. And those experiences, which started at QU, are still things that I try to interact with regularly. That's what I did on campus. Off campus, I was also a phlebotomist at Quincy Medical Group in town. I knew pretty early on that I did not want to be a clinician with my biology degree, and I now work in the pharmaceutical industry, and this brief stint as a phlebotomist gave me enough of an introduction into patient care to really be able to understand now, when I'm working in pharmaceutics, how much the work that I do affects these very, very sick individuals, and so that was a very formative time. I was also a quality technician at JM Huber. For those that don't know, Huber is a calcium carbonate mill that's down on the river, and that was my first opportunity to work in a lab in industry. And so that is obviously where I am now with working at Pfizer, and that was sort of my first foyer into that. I started my research career in the fall of my junior year. I was working in the lab of Dr. Michelle Combs, whom most of you should probably still know. Now, we weren't doing any groundbreaking research up here at North Campus. I didn't cure cancer, I didn't find any new genes or anything like that, but what I did do, I think, is way more important, and that is I learned some very basic laboratory skills. I learned how to be a good lab mate, I learned basic techniques, I learned how to receive a protocol and how to follow it, and these are fundamentals that have set me up for success in every laboratory that I've been in since then. As I said, that was the fall of my junior year, and then in the spring of my junior year, I joined the aplasia research group. Now, there have been a lot of great aplasia scientists over the past couple days, and today especially, so I'm not going to talk about that in detail, other than to say that that was the first QU academic symposium that I was able to be a part of. And so my group here I can use this. This group right here was my very first poster presentation I ever did with Annika and Reagan. And this practice, this ability to collect data over the course of a year or a semester, whatever it may be, put it into a cohesive story, and then be able to present it, once again, to people from different walks of life. You talk to experts in your field, you talk to novices in your field, and most importantly, in my opinion, you talk to people outside of your field. And you have to be able to tell a compelling story, explain what you did, why you did it, to all of those groups. And this first experience absolutely set me up for success through graduate school and beyond. So this was my research group that worked specifically on my project. This was the overall aplasia group. I had to put this picture up here because I knew Dr. Hale would hate having a picture of herself up here. So you're welcome, wherever she may be. I loved my time in the aplasia group. However, it definitely solidified to me that I was a molecular biologist through and through. And so I went back to the lab of Dr. Combs, where I was using a gene, a protein called sonic hedgehog. And again, I'm not going to go into the science, but what's important to know is that this is a gene that is expressed in many different organisms at different developmental time points. And once again, we were using those basic fundamental lab skills that I had learned that first semester to be able to see if we could identify the same sonic hedgehog gene and protein in multiple different organisms across developmental timelines. And so you can see in this picture here, this is an embryonic day 10 chick wing and a mouse embryo. And you can see these dark areas of staining where sonic hedgehog is expressed. And so even though we might sometimes get caught up and feel that A place like QU, a small liberal arts school, doesn't have many opportunities, doesn't have many faculties or abilities, but we were able to really prove some exciting things up here at North Campus, and was incredibly exciting. And so this culminated in the second QU Academic Symposium, and I was so excited to find this picture. This is a picture of all the presenters and mentors from the second symposium. Isn't it crazy to see how much it has grown? It's absolutely phenomenal to see what just 4 short years has done. I did not do a poster this year. I did a platform presentation along with my mentor, under the guidance of my mentor, Dr. Combs. And this platform presentation was, again, that opportunity to take data that I collected over the course of a year, own it, develop a story, but to present it in a different way. There is a difference between giving a poster and giving a talk, and all of those, and having those different skills, the ability to do both depending on what's needed, is incredibly important, and I'm just so incredibly fortunate that I was able to have both during my tenure at QU. As I mentioned, after graduation, the very next day, I started at a lab in Washington University in St. Louis. I studied under Bob Meekum. And once again, I'm not really going to go into the science of any of the exciting stuff that I was doing, other than to say that we were working in blood vessel development and understanding how perturbations in that system can lead to vascular disease. My interview was definitely an interesting experience for this one, but really my success in this lab came from from the abilities that I had begun up here at North Campus in my time at QU. I was able to learn quickly. Some of the techniques that I was using in Dr. Meekum's lab were the exact same protocols that I was using in my undergraduate lab. So I was able to pretty much pick up where I had left off from Friday until Monday and learn them in a new instance, as well as picking up on new skills, new developments that set me up then for graduate school and beyond. Because of that ability, I was afforded the opportunity to be a co-author on a paper just a few short months after I began, which is a pretty novel, pretty different experience than a lot of research technicians have. But it was all of those abilities, all of those skills that I obtained from my time in the lab at QU that really gave me these opportunities. There was another paper that we had published actually this one just came out a couple months ago while I was actually in graduate school. So while I was in Bob's lab, I began to apply to and interview for graduate schools, and during that time, you don't realize just how much you learn in undergrad until your knowledge is really tested. So not only your communication skills when you have to interface with people, many of my grad school interviews had poster presentations, and I was fortunate enough that I had already been to a symposium where I knew how to interact, I knew how to talk to people and ask questions, both about my field and others. So that was an incredibly valuable experience. Another really important aspect of the application process for graduate school was my connections. Many of my faculty wrote me letters of recommendation. They helped me find schools and programs that I was interested in, and all of those people, even though I had been graduated, I wasn't in their daily life anymore, they were still invested in me. And that's one of the amazing things about your faculty and staff here at QU is that they care about you. They don't forget about you the second you turn your tassel over after graduation. They're still there for you. And so one piece of advice that I have is to continue to be able to use those connections. It's not just for letters of recommendation, but it's also what network, what knowledge do they have that they can help to propel your life or prepare your career forward, excuse me. And so after Bob's lab in WashU, I decided to stay at WashU because I loved the vascular extracellular matrix, and I joined the lab of Dr. Carmen Halaby. This was a really fun and exciting time, as graduate school sometimes can be. It was also very stressful and difficult, but I was so thankful at various times to my coursework at QU. The highly specialized courses that at least the biology students have in the upper level courses really helps prepare you for the level of rigor that graduate student courses expect and provide. Another thing in graduate school that really came in handy was the ability to read scientific journals. That's not something that a lot of undergraduates, in my experience, have a lot of exposure to. Don't get me wrong, I hated when they were assigned just as much as I know that you all do. It can be tedious and it can feel boring and it can feel like, what does this even have to do with anything? But simply the ability to learn to read, to learn to find literature, to write those literature reviews, even though it might feel like it's just for a grade, the ability that you're learning is how to research, how to find important sources, and all of that were the foundations of my graduate school work to be able to do all of that. And because I had those foundations in communication and writing and literature and all of that, I was actually able to have my first author publication come out in my second year of grad school. In my department, this was a little bit abnormal. Most people don't get a paper until their third or fourth year. So I was fortunate enough to kind of take some of the work that I did as a technician and find a new project within that and have this paper come out quickly. So again, my writing skills, which had been very solidly formed here, I know that those lab reports can be tedious, and I know that those lit reviews can be a little of not, yeah, I see Dr. Coelho, he's so proud of himself back there. I thought of you more than once in graduate school, Dr. Coelho, we'll put it that way. I started out in a PhD program for graduate school, as most grad programs are. I was a PhD in developmental regenerative and stem cell biology. And over time, I learned that there's a lot of back and forth and push and pull between the academic world and the industry world. And so from my experiences in career services, I knew that it was incredibly important to find what you were passionate about, to find what you loved. That's a lesson that I learned very early on from Kristen. And so as I began to ask myself the age-old question, what do I want to be when I grow up, in the middle of graduate school, I really learned, and this was a very long process and it was very difficult, and again, I'd be more than happy to talk to any of you about it later on, but I learned that I did not need a PhD to do what I wanted to do. So I made the decision after I finished my master's work to leave academia, and I joined a lab at Pfizer. Now, almost everybody knows Pfizer's name these days. They're very well known now. So I work in the bioassay and impurity testing group. And the easiest way I've explained it, I think I've said it to a couple of you now today, that I'm basically responsible for making sure that what's in your drug product is in it and what's not supposed to be in it is not in it, okay? It's been a wild ride. It's been 6 months, and my interview skills, this was one amazing thing. I actually was able to still rely on the Quest Center here at QU for help when I was thinking about applying for this job. Kristen still helped me with my resume. And that was, just wonderful resources. My interview skills certainly came from doing many mock interviews during my time here at QU, and my ability to talk about myself and about my accomplishments without sounding overly arrogant or anything along those natures. Those are all really important interview skills, and while you have the resources here at QU, utilize them. They go away eventually, and whatever foundation, whatever experiences you can get now will set you up for success many, many years down your career. Also, my ability to learn and grow incredibly quickly has come in handy at Pfizer. In 6 short months, I've been able to make quite a mark for myself within my little department, and it's been truly wonderful. And I 100% credit my education, my formation, my communication, all of those things from my short time here at QU. And so in thinking about this talk for you all today, I was trying to think about what I thought could be taken away. And so I have a couple parting words of wisdom in my aged years. The first is to participate. You're already doing that now. You're here at the academic symposium. You all did such amazing work, and you were able to develop these beautiful posters, and I'm sure some wonderful presentations over the past couple years. But participate in clubs, participate in research, whatever you can. Even if it's only a one-time experience, it is still something that might lead to a connection. You might find a spark within yourself that you decide to follow up on. You never know where those experiences and those opportunities will take you, and so participate in whatever you can to find those opportunities. The second is to think uniquely, and this is kind of a fun one, I think, for me. The experiences that you have had in your time here at QU, but also from high school and even before then, they may seem small or insignificant. I know that I can be completely honest. I oftentimes caught myself saying, oh, I only come from a small liberal arts school. I don't have that much great experience. I don't have all of that knowledge. But you have to start thinking about all of your experiences and the ways that they unconsciously impact your daily life. Even now, when I was preparing this talk for you all today, I thought, I don't really know that a one-time symposium really did all that much for me going to grad school and now having a job at Pfizer. But when I started to think about my ability to compile data, that all started in this exact room, this very room 5 years ago now. It all started back then. So think about the opportunities, think about your experiences, and think about them the way that they unconsciously affect your life, from your coursework to whatever it may be, they matter a lot more than you might give them credit for. And the last is to use your resources. You have lots of resources sitting here in this very room, faculty, staff, people that you meet along the way, conferences, interview for jobs that you don't think you're gonna get. All of these things are ways to help propel you forward. You never know where, as I said before, you never know where a connection can take you. And so seize those opportunities. 9 times out of 10, people want to help you succeed. They want to help you find your way, find your career, personally, professionally, whatever that might look like for you. So continue to utilize those resources and find your way throughout your personal and your professional life. And so with that, I'd happy to be one of those connections. I've spoken with a couple of you today. I'd be more than happy to talk with you about anything that I talked about in this presentation today that I didn't have enough time to get into detail with, about graduate school, about pharmaceutics, anything you might want. Kristen has all my contact information and is more than welcome to hand that out to anybody who might be interested. I'm so incredibly thankful to be here and to have the opportunity to speak with you. I'd like to thank all of the organizers, Dr. Deskins and Kristen Leeson. And with that, good luck this afternoon.
Thank you, Bridget. Our next presenter, I've actually had a few minutes to chat with her earlier today, and what excited me is that earlier this week at her institution is their academic symposium, and so I felt like this was a great way for her to wrap up her week and celebrate with us and share her knowledge. So our next keynote speaker, Dr. Maureen Dolan, is also familiar with QU. It was Quincy College at the time. She graduated with a double major in biology and chemistry. She went on to Iowa State University to earn her MS in biochemistry and a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry from the University of Florida. That's a lot of education. Dr. Dolan is the director of the biotechnology program and associate professor of molecular biology at Arkansas State University. Today, she will share her research, interdisciplinary, student-driven undergraduate research, launching plastic-eating waxworms into space. Please help me welcome Dr. Dolan.
Thank you all. I want to, first of all, thank all the organizers. Shout out to Matt Bergman and Caitlin for the invite, and it's been a real pleasure to be here. As Kristen mentioned, I'm a former graduate. I was actually here when North Campus opened. I was a sophomore. I'm dating myself right now. And it is so rewarding to come back here and see research being done at this level. It's incredible. I had to go off campus. It wasn't here back then. There were 2 biology professors, 2 chemistry professors. And so it is really rewarding to see, and I'm just so impressed, and I'm so honored to be here, so thank you. I didn't take a normal path myself. I have not been a professor as long as some of your professors have. And I spent some time starting a company as an entrepreneur, and so it really has sort of crystallized the way that I sort of approach science. I also want to make one shout out today because I'm going to be talking about undergraduate research and the value of this in at all levels of education, from K-12 all the way up into graduate work. And I want to make a shout out because I learned how to sort of walk across that breadth here at QU. And my mom, Dorsey and Dolan, who's there in the back, actually would have me drag, I asked for permission, a couple of microscopes from the North Campus into first grade classrooms and start to sort of show them cool science. And so it really was formed here. And so without further ado, I'd like to sort of share a little story about what we've been up to recently with undergraduate research at Arkansas State. So I was just at the national conference. So the National Council for Undergraduate Research is held each year across the country. This gathers all undergraduate researchers together and they present. And so our group, we brought about 25 students, drove 12 hours up to Eau Claire, Wisconsin last week. And as I was thinking about the talk I was going to do today, I noticed this saying up on the wall of their library. And it really encapsulates what you guys are doing here, which is that concept of involve me and I will learn. And you can't do that better than doing undergraduate research at higher places of learning. So when I have a course of molecular cell biologist, and so when I think of researchers, I think of people who look like this and are in the field or in the laboratory or computational biology. But as you all know, it's much broader than that, and research goes across all disciplines. In fact, one of these is a history, and so going back to that saying, actually it's oftentimes erroneously given credit to Benjamin Franklin. And it took a number of years and research to actually show that it actually wasn't translated into English until 160 years after Ben Franklin was on Earth. So that came from research. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is the fact that when we do research, we oftentimes, and I've done it for years, you're oftentimes working in your various disciplines. So I had a really unique opportunity to sort of cross those disciplines, and I already have sort of a propensity to do this, but this took me to a whole different level. So I'd like to share the story with you. So, whoops, apologies. So this is about student-driven interdisciplinary research. In the fall of 2020, my research office came to me and said, hey, there's this really cool opportunity from NASA. They are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the International Space Station. And they are putting out a call for students to apply to propose a research project that could be conducted on the International Space Station for about 30 days. It would go up with a cargo load and be returned then subsequently. And it has, but you know, I said, okay, cool, when's it due? They're like, a month. I'm like, all right, sure, no problem. So at this point, it was on antimicrobial resistance or sustainability. I sort of worked a little bit in the area of antimicrobial resistance, and it also had to have citizen science. And so, as I sort of mentioned, I have a passion for particularly K-12 STEM outreach, and had been involved with my research institute for about 20 years now in terms of going out into the K-12 schools and talking STEM and working with STEM students. And so anyway, I said, okay, sure. So at this point, remember, it's fall 2020, we're in COVID, we were hybrid at this point. And so I said, okay, well let's, I was a council member for the Honors College, and so I put out a solicitation, and within 24 hours we got 17 responses. And actually 27 responses, excuse me. We actually ended up taking 7 of them moving forward and formed our team, which is shown here. So because of the nature of the project, we knew, and when I say we, Shay Harris down in the bottom right-hand corner there is our educational outreach director. And so I actually said, hey Shay, I can't do this alone, let's partner this together. And he has great interactions with our K-12 teachers and schools in our area. And so we ended up with 4 engineers, Ben Whitfield up at the, Ben Whitfield up at the top, and he was an electrical engineer, a few of the mechanical engineers, Mason, Jacob, and Landon, and then my 3 biologists, Hannah, Katie, and Claire. And in fact, I didn't meet some of these guys until, this was the fall, I didn't meet them until the spring of 2020 because most of this was being done virtually. And so anyway, we started out and we were spinning some ideas. Also, let me make a big note here, and this is really important for those of you who are students. These were first semester sophomores. We knew this was a 2-year project and we wanted to make sure, because the end project is, I'm about ready to tell you, they got to go to Kennedy Space Center and see their project launch. So I was like, man, I just want to make sure they get to actually see it and they're not off campus. So we started with newbies, real newbies. But this was such an impressive group. So we started to throw ideas around, and all of a sudden they were like, yeah, microbial resistance is kind of cool, Dr. Dolan, but we really want to do something on sustainability. And so a colleague of mine who was brainstorming with us said, I read this really cool article about these plastic-eating waxworms. And honestly, that's all it took. These kids were off to the races. They were on Google Scholar, they were using interlibrary loan, and literally helped pull together a grant within a month to submit to NASA. And we were one of 19 schools. We made it to the semifinal of 10, and we then needed to pitch our response. And we ended up being one of the 5 schools chosen. And you might notice a few of these smaller schools, some of these schools. We were in a group, a pretty prestigious group, Stanford, Columbia University. University of Idaho has a long history of aeronautic and NASA funding, as well as an affiliation also with the University of New Hampshire, Manchester. And to go to what Bridget was saying, we're an R2 institution. We are not top dogs in the research area. We felt very sort of like, really? Like, can we really do this? I'm going to tell you, I am just so incredibly proud, and I want to tell you more what these guys did. So they were passionate about sustainability. We have clearly a plastic problem here on Earth. Currently 32.2 million metric tons of plastic exist in our landfills just in the US. And that is a staggering number. That doesn't touch any other plastics around the globe, including in our waters, which is not good news. NASA didn't want to create the same problem. They know they're moving into space. Right now, I don't know if you know, I didn't know this, but the way plastic is heavily used in space travel because it's lightweight, it's durable, it has all those features. This is a picture of a unit where they package it up and jettison it back into the atmosphere, and it basically burns up as it enters back in. Not so great. Second way they bring plastic is they bring it back and they land it back in we're just adding to our existing problems. So as NASA considers inhabiting the moon, as they consider far space travel into other planetary bodies, including Mars, they don't want to create this problem. So this was the solicitation. And so our kids began to explore this little feller called Galleria melanella, more commonly known as the waxworms. This is a pest of beehives. So apiaries constantly are dealing with these guys and trying to get rid of them. Well, they have multiple stages here, life stages, but they are voracious eaters of all sorts of things. We sort of dub them the goats of the insect world. And they have, in their life cycle during the larval stages is when they're most voracious and eaters. Now, this is actually relatively new data. They recognize that digestion of plastic was attributed to their gut microbiome, but a recent study in Nature reports actually identified a brand new enzyme, salivary enzyme, that is also participating along with one that's actually associated with development, which is very interesting. And so the story goes like this. So this is a recent discovery, 2017. A scientist from in Spain was helping his buddy, who's an apiary, clean out beehives. throws them into the equivalent of a Walmart bag, comes back a day later, and these things are all over the place, and there's this huge hole in the bag. So he's a scientist, and his apiary friend says, yeah, that happens all the time. Yeah, I forgot to tell you, put it in a cloth bag. And he said, yeah, but what happened to it? So he's a scientist. And so he went back to the lab and made the discovery that these waxworms actually don't just break it up, they actually convert it to another product, which is ethylene glycol. You might recognize this. This is a major component, is the component of antifreeze. It's a component of pen inks that we use. It is used in our, if you're wearing polyester, it's part of polyester. And so the concept that you could take something that right now, for some of these plastics, particularly this class, we recycle them, but it's a really low recycle number. They don't recycle well. So the actual use to use these for other uses. So the project, which is called Student Payload Opportunity with Citizen Science, or SPOCS, that is, they did do a play on words. It was really driven by three components. The biology component for, obviously, the waxworm. We needed an engineering component because we needed to actually send this up in space and have the mechanism to do that, and then the citizen science. So, as you might, one of the things that we always say is citizen science is 2/5 of that word, of that acronym. And so we were very lucky to work with two great schools in our area. And I wanted, for those of you not familiar with Arkansas, we are located in the boot heel of, just below the boot heel of Missouri. This is the Arkansas Delta. We worked with one of our only Catholic grade school, and also a school that is in probably our lowest socioeconomic, 70% lower reduced lunch at Nettleton STEAM. And these were amazing partners, and they worked with us all during the academic year of 2021-2022. We actually did a kickoff event in the spring prior to that academic year in May 21 to really engage the kids, get them sort of excited. We focused on 3rd through 5th, but really it was the 5th and 6th that ultimately we landed. You know, you bite off too much, and then you're like, oh man, yeah, we don't have enough personnel to do that. So we sort of focused on the 5th and 6th grade on those schools. And you can engage, but we wanted to go deeper. And so we really focused on authentic project-based learning. We were fortunate. Nettleton STEAM has that as project-based learning as an initiative and focus of their school. But these kids were 3D printing the pods that we did all the experiments in their classrooms. They were actually measuring up on the right there under near peer mentoring. We brought scales, we left them there, and they actually masked worms, they masked the various components. And the other thing that I think, two things that I think were really unique about this project is it wasn't just me. I'm old. They don't want to see me. I look like some of their teachers. And so it's those college kids that made such an impression. I wish I had it in recording, because one of these little girls said, I want to be a scientist just like you. And Katie has pink hair and a nose ring. It's awesome. And it is it's so amazing. And to have that sort of impact on this next generation of students. We also are not K-12 educators, so we partnered very closely with and did professional development, and that went both ways. Our teachers were teaching us, and we were teaching them the science. They were teaching us about pedagogy and how to handle that in the classroom. And they also honored us by always picking a theme, and they picked sustainability that year, so it just totally aligned. They actually took it again this year because we're back in the classroom again for a follow-on project. So the biology component, I want to make two things clear. Number one, this is a $20,000 grant, not a big chunk of change. Secondly, Fortunately, I'm in a research institute, so we had some of the infrastructure. Else, honestly, we wouldn't have been competitive. The second is that they were volunteers. They volunteered for 3 years on this project. So this is outside of some research. Thirdly, this is not my research. Unlike those other schools, I will tell you, they were working on their own projects, but they were spin-offs of their various professors. This is not my research. I'm a biotechnologist, and some of what we did is relatable, but they had to start from ground zero. Fortunately, I have an entomologist friend in my faculty on campus, and so she taught our students about waxworms, how to rear them. We now have actually a research grade waxworm colony that is actually being used by a number of other faculty on campus for studying toxicology and cancer drugs. Here we ran a number of experiments before we started, and so one of the things we had to think about, which was really interesting, is that when you go up into space, it takes up to 10 days for our unit to get actually plugged in and begin the experiment. Well, we didn't want our waxworms chomping away and eating plastic and their nutrient source, beeswax. And so we had to basically figure out where we could keep them dormant and not cause issues with mortality. And so where we actually ended up was actually, the data is not shown here, but we ended up at 16 degrees in large part because although it wasn't as dominant, so basically what we did is 6 days at those low temperatures, and then we progressed the experiment for 25 days and asked how much did they eat at the end and if that earlier lower temperature impacted their consumption of the beeswax and plastic. So there was a little bit of a hit at the 16 hours, but it ended up that NASA, instead of sending us ice packs, they let us use their Merlin, which is really cool. It's from the University of Alabama, by the way, they were able to keep our temperature very constant, and we had very low mortality, which I'm about ready to show you. And so the engineering component was really interesting. This is Jacob using a 3D printer. Everything was 3D printed. It was a very iterative process. The model on the left was our earlier stage. We wanted to be able to, so we were given a couple of constraints. 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 15 centimeters. That big to conduct your experiment. Secondly, we were told by NASA, it has to be autonomous. It has to work automatically. You had enough power that essentially equates to what's in your cell phone battery to operate your entire experiment, and it couldn't be touched. It plugs in and we unplug it. That's it. That's all we do. And so from there, everything internal to that case had to be designed by the engineering team. But it wasn't just the engineering team. This is where the beauty of interdisciplinary science was at its finest. This was a back and forth. The biologists were learning things. We were constantly changing. So things came up and we had to change. And that they had to communicate, and the engineers responded. And the engineers would come back and say, well, here's some of our constraints. And so the biologists would then have to address some of those issues. It was amazing. We ended up with basically next edition where instead of being a double-decker, we went to a single pod layer shown on the right there at the bottom, the pod tray, with each of the two pods with a camera above. So we had a total of 4 cameras, and above that, the computer board. It was a very modular setup, which ended up being really important because we were able to late load the biology when we were at NASA, which was very important. And so this is our final design. And on the right is our experimental design. There were 4 waxworms per pod. There were 2 controls, which are just beeswax alone, and then 6 pods, which were beeswax with the plastic to test. I want to make a shout out here and go back to that authentic project-based learning with our 5th and 6th graders. When I say those words, I really mean those words. We were actually going to be sending up the normal meal that they give, but it is baby oatmeal, glycerin, and honey. Think about taking images with that stuff. And so we ended up, also it ended up giving a whole bunch of problems in terms of containment. We were at 3 levels of containment at this point, which made our internal testing area much smaller. And so it was our citizen science, because we had the numbers. We were working with 250 of them. By the way, we were in those classrooms 18 times over the entire academic year in those 2 schools. And they essentially ran our experiment to show that beeswax was sufficient to sustain these guys for 30 days. We ended up at 22, but for 30 days. So they literally contributed to that design that you're seeing right here, which is incredible. So we launched to the International Space Station. So on the left there, we knew that we didn't know about flight for the waxworm. So we convinced NASA to allow us to actually drive ourselves out with the waxworms, switching out ice packets to try to maintain temperature. And that's a long drive, you guys. Whew. And I drove back straight. I will not do, that's 14 and a half hours. That's a long time. And so anyway, we transported these guys, and our students were able to actually work at the Kennedy Space Center labs right next to it. It was so totally incredible. However, we got there, and about 4 days later, it scrubbed. There was a leak of the propellant. And so, yeah, I didn't want that to go up. And so they scrubbed the launch. Well, we're scientists. And so all of a sudden, this gave us an opportunity, what we were calling take 1. And we were able, NASA was really pushing for us to fly the worms back, and so we did it. Okay, first of all, this has electronics. Don't try to run this through TSA, even with a letter from NASA. It's not gonna go. There were students only. I wasn't there because I was driving, so that was like not a good scene. Also, they wouldn't let us manipulate the ice packs, so the worms had gone really high in temperature. Secondly, my biologists who were driving back, we were like, we're just not keeping temperature. So again, showing the beauty of interdisciplinary research, these guys have been hanging with these engineers now for about 2.5 years, and they're like, you know what, we can engineer a unit that we could plug in. And so they basically got an old fan from our guy, our computer IT guy, and hooked it up to a plastic box, some racks, some ice packs to allow the circulation. All of a sudden, we went from a range of about 12 degrees Celsius to a range of 3 degrees Celsius. And we lovingly call this our waxworm condo. And it worked great. And again, just showing the impact of that interdisciplinary exchange really impacting the way they thought about science. So finally, we did get to go to our second launch about a month later. That has a whole story, which if you're interested, come chat with me. But this is Jacob handing off our unit to the group that basically puts it into cold stowage, and then ultimately gets loaded onto the rocket. Of course, we had a mascot. Her name is Polly Ann Ethel Glycol, and that is one of our students. And we had NASA scientists flipping cracking up, and it was fun. They were just like, at first they were like, they couldn't believe it. And so, but one of my favorite pictures, and we have a lot of footage, is this was totally spontaneous. After they had passed off, this is a group that had been together for 2.5 years, and they just sort of sat there and just kind of absorbed the moment. And it was really special. And we also, on the next day, got to do behind the scene tours. We got to see Artemis in the vehicle assembly building. This is the rocket that will ultimately take us, it's already launched once to circle the moon, but head into space, but it's the third mission is aimed to actually land on the moon. We haven't done that since 1972. So that's super cool. We got to see that. And a whole bunch of other cool stuff. We got to go to the launch. 2 of our students were on NASA TV. Check them out. Super proud of them. And they got to commentate during the launch in the media box. And the rest of us got to be in the OSB2 where the president, he wasn't there, normally watches. And it was incredible. We then got, was on station for almost a month, and they returned it. We got all of our samples back. They stopped the experiment at 22 days to freeze the waxworms. So I'm a molecular biologist, and we have a whole bunch of stuff that we're very interested in doing with these samples. And then ultimately, our group, we did some data analysis for our reporting to NASA at the end of December last year. And so one of the outcomes I wanted to share with you, it's much better on a screen versus a big screen, is we took time-lapse of the waxworms in space. And so on the bottom left there are the controls, and I want you to sort of look. You can first of all see the waxworms. They actually used they have like these suction cup feet that they'll stick, and they actually would grab the side of the wall, which was interesting. So behaviorally, I had my entomologist friend look at it. It's really quite interesting because they seem to, even though it's microgravity, they seem to sort of use some of those tools. But if you look long term, on the right-hand side are our plastic plus beeswax. And over time, you'll notice that you see these white pellets instead of just all yellow. The yellow is the beeswax. The white is actually plastic. They poop it out. It's called frass. I didn't know that word till I actually started doing this. And so this was pretty cool. This was the first demonstration that waxworms survived in space. There was a group from the UK that tried to do this, and they didn't do the preliminary experiments, which is why we did it. And we weren't given this information until after we were awarded. So at the time, this was a poster that was behind NASA's walls. But they shared it with us, and so that's why we actually ran those stowage experiments beforehand, because what happened was they dropped that temperature too low and they didn't even make it to station. So some of the data that we have been able to analyze at this point concluded that if you look at both beeswax consumption and plastic on the ISS, statistically, it's not different than our lab controls or our travel controls that went with us. So the lessons learned is certainly that we've been able to show that there's similar plastic consumption and beeswax to those of Earth control and microgravity. And these are the first images from space. There's a side story about that second launch. We made the 5th slide of the bigwig NASA group meeting before the second launch, which was like, oh man, that's cool. They were really interested in it. So professionally, these kids collaborated an interdisciplinary team. They honed those. They are some of the best communicators. I was telling someone, one of my students is she's a science, she's actually going to med school. And she won the top award at our institution, 13,000 students, for not a communication major. She won the top communication major award. It wasn't on this project, it was on another topic. Again, really speaking to the fact of a project like this, you can talk to a 6th grader, I'm telling you, those are really powerful skills. And also that they learn from failure. And this is something I heard from my students time and time again. From a higher education pedagogy standpoint, this concept of working in silos, because we do. It's just a natural thing. I've done it for years. This was the first time I've really done a truly integrated interdisciplinary project in higher education. I've been in business. We do this all the time. It's very common. But in education, we tend to not spread our wings as much. And this was really quite a unique opportunity. That integrating near-peer mentoring, first of all, it's a win-win on both sides. And I've always been a fan of it, but this has taken me over the edge. And finally, just fostering student-driven science discovery. This was not my idea. In fact, if they had followed my idea, Those big schools were doing those. They had 200,000, one of them had a $500,000 grant. We would not have been able to compete. That supplemented their $20,000 grant. So I think, again, this ability, here you at QU, yeah, you're a smaller school. I'm gonna tell you, first of all, thank you, Bridget, because it's true. You learn how to communicate. You know your professors. These are things, you know how to write. These are skills that I am telling you, every employer that I talk to through my biotech program, they'll tell you, I can teach you how to pipette. I can teach you how to do stuff, run an assay. I need you to know those soft skills. And so I will tell you, and again, bravo to, I'm grateful for my opportunities here because you set me on a path in an era when those skills were not valued at public institutions. So, ongoing, we have gotten some additional funding. I have 2 honors thesis majors that are following up on that microbiome analysis, which we're really interested in, and also doing some degradation analysis on the biochemistry side to actually measure the byproduct. I mentioned the conferences. We have 3 publications on rough draft right now that I am going to be busy this summer. And we are back in the classroom collecting some amazing survey data. If you're interested on the education side, this is like a dream come true data set. And we're really excited and hoping to go for some national funding. So obviously, when you do something like this, this is done. We can't say enough about our citizen science partners, Nettleton STEAM and Blessed Sacrament Catholic School, and their teachers and students. We literally had a village. Again, not an expert, and so I really relied on many of my faculty and staff. The NASA STEM engagement crew, we also had NASA mentors. So these were mentors that got on every month and talked to our students. Their contract was up in August of last year. And I just got a text. They just were asking, hey, aren't you guys graduating? So, and then the NanoRacks crew. So last, but certainly not least, is my team of 7. I am so proud of them. I'm going to be a hot mess next week because they are graduating. They are seniors. I have one that's coming back and doing a gap year and another one who will graduate in December. They are going off to do amazing, incredible things. I am so proud of them. And I am grateful that I have been able to be a part of this group and watch them grow into amazing individuals. And the sky is the limit for this group. And so with that, thank you, and sorry, I probably went a little over, but thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. It is so incredible. Take these opportunities. I have a video, and what Claire said is, just say yes. And I think it's a great slogan as we sort of forge forward into this next century. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dolan. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Caitlin Deskins as we'll begin the awards ceremony.
All right, welcome. We're going to go ahead and start with our award ceremony. I am Dr. Caitlin Deskins, and I am the one who sends a lot of the emails to all the students and the judges and puts the abstract book together and all the different things, but I also want to really thank Kristen, who does a lot of stuff too, and she didn't thank herself when she was doing all the thank yous earlier. And so me and Dr. Kimberly Hale will be announcing our winners, but first, before we get into the winners of the symposium, we would like to have special recognition for the first graduates of our cybersecurity and business analytics programs. So Dr. Lavanya Madava and Dr. Walker, would you like to come up to hand out your awards or your pins for your students?
Hi, I'm Dr. Walker. I teach business analytics and strategic management with Oakley School of Business. We're really proud of these particular graduates. We're calling them charter graduates because 4 or 5 years ago we did not have a business analytics course. It's now a formal major. You can also minor in it. If anybody's wondering what business analytics is as a topic, if you heard about artificial intelligence, machine language learning, if you've ever bought anything on Amazon and it suggested if you bought this, you should buy this. It's a number of things that you run into. It's really a growing field. And these 3 students are the ones that finished first. The first time a lot of people heard of business analytics was a movie that was done called Moneyball, and it was using baseball. So you can think of Moneyball as another one, and one of our students actually puts his love of baseball together with his love of business analytics, and that's Tom Kazumas. And I don't think he's here today because he's actually competing in a baseball tournament. So he's coming back to start his MBA, and again combining his love of baseball with his business analytics. He's going to work on an MBA in operations management. So Tom will get a pin when he gets back from the baseball game. The other 2 students, the next one is Vincent Bowen. If you come forward, Vincent. And our second student is Cassidy Van Verlo, if you can come forward. Now Cassidy is an overachiever. She also has a major in accounting. She also has finance, and then she also added business analytics on top of it. Now, not only can she do that, but she can combine these particular skills. So for accounting, she can use the business analytics to help her with her audit perspective, or if she's working in finance, she can use it for optimizing portfolios. So she's found 3 subjects that make her very successful. So again, congratulations, Cassidy.
Hello everyone. Congratulations to all the presenters and mentors for the symposium. I'm so happy and proud to announce our first group of cybersecurity graduate students. We actually have 5 of them who graduated this semester and being the first group of cybersecurity major students, but I think I only have a couple of them here, but I'm happy to announce all the names. So I have Peyton Lewis, I think I have seen Ashley Bell. She's here. Can you please come forward? Well, the other 3 students are Wade Kill, I have Grant, and also Kamal Harris. So some of them already started working in a company in St. Louis, and he couldn't make it, and I also have other 2 who also couldn't make it this day, but thank you so much for everyone. Again, congratulations to everybody who presented and all the mentors for making this to this symposium this year.
Thank you, Dr. Mandava and Dr. Walker. We're very honored that you guys could come out here to get your pins for being your first graduates. And speaking of pins, so participants in the academic symposium get to receive lapel pins to wear on their graduation gown. So we will be handing those out. In addition, each presenter and mentor will receive a commemorative certificate, but of course we don't have their certificates ready just yet because we have to, announce the winners and then hand them out. And then first place presentations will be awarded $100 for the presenters as well as $100 for their faculty mentors. And that money will come from the business office to the students and mentors. So again, not any money today, sorry. So judging was done by an invited panel of experts and non-expert judges from our QU community. Feedback from official judges will be forwarded to the student presenters and mentors for professional development. We just want to ask at the end of the awards, if people who are still around would like to have a big group presentation, a group picture with all the students and mentors. So just hang back after you get your award.
Thank you to our judges. Their votes have been tallied, and it is time to announce the 6th Annual Quincy University Academic Symposium winners. When they are announced, please invite presenters and mentors to come forward to have their picture taken.
All right, so for our first group, we're going to have projects from the Oakley School of Business. In the category of business, our first place winners were the Turning Greens into Green presenters Faith Feard, Emily Kleiner, Alexander Polston, and Cole Schnickoki. I don't know if I can say that one right. Schnickoki. So if any of those students are here, please come up and receive your pins. Oh, mentor Dr. Cynthia Halliman. Sorry, I'm Cynthia. Cynthia can get a pin too. And then you guys want to stand there with Cynthia for a picture? Move around the way, yes. I don't know if we guess do second place. Second place. And so in second place, we have our analysis of the impact of the COVID pandemic on financial ratios of companies in specific industries. Our presenters were Parker Lyman-Stoll, Nolan Christian, and Marcel Casper. Their mentor was Dr. Vicki Edson. If any of your students are here, please come up and receive your pins.
You guys want your picture taken?
No, I was like, Corey's here taking pictures.
Sorry.
Pins.
Is it my turn?
Do you want to do the business analytics?
Sure. So are we going?
I don't know, should you do 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3? I did 1 and 2, but I don't know.
I'll do 3, 2, 1, just
Okay.
to be different.
Okay.
Now for business analytics. In third place was peer-to-peer analysis and marketing. Presenters were Vincent Bowen. The presenter was Vincent Bowen, and the mentor was Dr. Dana Walker. So, yeah. And then in second place, Quincy Park District Fitness Trail Planning presenters Tom Consemius and mentor Dr. Dana Walker, but he's not here, but yay for him. And then in first place, financial analysis of entertainment industry, presenter Cassidy Van Verlo, mentor Dr. Dana Walker. Do you want me to do psychology platforms and then you do posters? Sure. All right. Now we're going to announce projects from the School of Education and Human Services, starting with psychology platforms. So in third place, the attachment between cats and their owners, presenter Alexis Fletcher, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. If you're here, please come up to get your pens. And then in second place, morning versus night, presenter Kara Wilhelm, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. And then in first place, the relationship between music and cognition, presenter Madeline Guillermo, and mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis.
Right. So now for psychology posters. So we have a lot of entries into the psychology posters. So we're going to name out the top 3, and then the rest of you will have you guys come up to receive your pins when I call you in alphabetical order. So in third place, we have the positive effects of technology for student success. The presenter was Sydney Happel, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. In second place, we have Screen Time in Children. Presenter Christian Faith Haggard, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. And in first place, we have Success in the Face of Trauma. Presenter Julie Matthews, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. The other participants in the psychology posters, we have the correlation between job stress, job satisfaction, and productivity. Presenter Elizabeth Castillo, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. We have predicting future behavior. Presenter Deandra Cornwall, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. Another one would be brand familiarity in the academic world. Presenter Isabel Guillotte, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. The correlation between Stroop experiment proficiency and family history of memory disorders. Presenter Danielle Hand, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. Poster of college stress and academic efficacy. Presenter Lux Hitzeroth, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. The consumption of alcohol, how it impacts college academics. Presenter Mercedes Kite, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. Does sleep affect the mental health of college students? Presenter Crystal Middendorf, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis. And finally, our last poster was the impacts of violent music on youths. Presenter Chadwick Stewart, mentor Dr. Christina Mousakis.
All right, so projects from the School of Fine Arts and Communications, so graphic design. So in third place, the Wiseman Senior Retrospective, presenter Peyton Wiseman, mentor Bob Major. And then in oh. And then in second place, special edition book cover redesign, presenter Jensen Ross, mentor Gary Meacher. You guys can come over and get your picture. And then in first place, Quinsippy Elementary Branding and Design, presenter Corey K. Obert, mentor Gary Meacher. All right. So then for music, in first place, the clarinet, a historical look at its evolution and compositional developments. Presenters, Phil Haverstock, Jesse Mose, Raven Sweeney, Joseph Winger, mentor, Dr. Christina Dom.
Now we are on to the School of Science and Technology. This is from biology. In fourth place, we have the colonization of wildlife nest boxes by wasps and birds. Presenters were Juliana Clutter and Jaden Pugh, mentor Dr. Joe Coelho. In third place, we have rock, pop, or classical. Which music do Alplasia Californica groove? Presenters were Sarah Nelson and Keegan Klingel, mentor Dr. Kimberly Hale. In second place, Candida Carriage in the student populations. Presenters Christian Zarni, Megan Marrow, Blake Peter, Jacob Sprock, mentor Dr. Lee Inger. And in first place, we had food tracking and examination of higher level learning in Aplasia Californica. Presenters Ashley Gerber, Lexi Portia, and Madeline Rizika, mentor Dr. Kimberly Hale.
Chemistry. All right, so then in chemistry, in first place was investigative analysis of shampoo ingredients and dehydration methods. Presenter Elena Rolves, mentor Dr. Caitlin Deskins. And then computer science in first place was enhancing healthcare with real-time body gesture recognition, the drone solution. Presenters Malik Hardman, Braden, Luke Reese Tressler, and mentor Dr. Hussam Ghazala.
our last category was cybersecurity. In second place, we have implementing a firewall for a small business environment. Presenters Camus Harris, Peyton Lewis, mentor Dr. Lavanya Mandava. And in first place with penetration testing using Kali Linux and Nmap, presenters Ashley Bell and Wade Kill, mentor Dr. Lavanya Mandava. Oh, and now we have Dr. Reed that would like to come say something to us.
Well, President McGee is unable to be here today. He's representing the university up in Chicago. So here I am, Vice President for Academic Affairs. Well, this really is an academic event, and I am so proud of all of you. Our congratulations then to all of our student scholars and the faculty mentors for this really impressive body of work. You've done wonderful work here, and I'm so proud of all of you. And I know the entire faculty and staff are proud of all of you. Also, my congratulations to Dr. Caitlin Deskins, our Director of Undergraduate Research, for all the work she has done in putting this event together. And also to Kristen Leeson, Director of our Quest Center, for all the support she has given to this event. The Academic Symposium is getting better and better every academic year. This is an event that Quincy University should be very, very proud of, and it will get even bigger and better next year. So again, congratulations to everyone. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes our awards for anybody who's still around that would be mentors and presenters for our group picture. And then you're welcome to leave or socialize. Thank you.